And welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Peter Winnick. I'm the founder and CEO at Thought Leadership Leverage, and you're joining me on the podcast today. Today's guest is Lisa K. Solomon, and the quote underneath her bio, which I love, is "The future doesn't have to be something that happens to us." So Lisa is a designer in resident at the Sanford D School. She's a author of several books, co-author of a couple of books, and she's on the Thinkers 50 radar list, or has been on the Thinkers 50 radars list. So let's just hit it. How are you doing today, Lisa?
Oh, I'm great, Peter. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited for this conversation.
Yeah. No, me too. So how did this happen? How did you get here? Like, because this is a non-traditional, non-linear, non-predictable place. Like, is this what little Lisa dreamed of?
Oh my gosh. Nope. No kidding. It's non-traditional. And I will say, Peter, I do wake up these days, in spite of how challenging the world feels. I wake up every day grateful to be doing what I'm doing, to be able to have conversations with people like you, to be working with students at Stanford at the D School, to help them envision wider futures, futures they want to be a part of, and build the skills required to bring those futures to life. It is an accidental career, no doubt, no doubt, but it is one that I was really lucky to design for myself, following my own curiosity about why things in the world seem to work and what was behind those things that worked, and to understand that behind a lot of what I found to be interesting or magical or awe-inspirement was this incredible discipline of design.
If I were to say, what was the original plan of I was going to be a X and I wound up a Y, and what were the forks in the road?
Yeah, well, it depends how far back in the way back
Yeah.
machine you
Yeah.
go. But honest to goodness, and I have thought about this a bit, when I was younger, middle school age,
Mhm.
maybe even younger, I wanted to be president of Walt Disney World. Not like a princess, but like president. And the reason why I wanted to be president of Walt Disney World and why that captured my imagination was because I was lucky to go there as an early kid and found that awe, the happiest place on earth. And I remember thinking, like, how do all these things add up, right? That didn't just happen. That magic didn't just happen. How was it that you could go and visit a place and it could transport you into a totally different feeling, a totally different sense of wonderment? And and that was really what I wanted to be. When I was younger.
Well, stay there a minute,
Yeah,
because if you
yeah,
talk to, say, people in the theater, they tell you about the first time they saw a Broadway play or whatever it was, and it was magical, and I wanted to be in the theater. Not I wanted to run the theater. So, alright, so that's a so I've heard lots of folks say, "Oh, and then the first time I saw a movie, I wanted to be an actress or write in film or direct or whatever," right? But, like, boom, like, I wanna run the show here.
yeah.
And, like, because I would argue most 8-year-olds or whatever, 12-year-olds don't even realize there is that. Like, you know?
I know. I know, I agree. I think let me just connect one more dot, which didn't make sense going forward, but kinda makes sense going backwards. My grandfather was in the restaurant business. So
Mhm.
the other big thread in my early life was being infatuated with what made for great restaurant experiences. I mean, I literally, Peter, I'm such a nerd. I would get architecture books of restaurants. I was like 12, trying to understand like, wow, that's so cool that they're taking this approach and that approach. And we would now call that not just architecture, but experience design. Didn't have a language for that at the time. But,
And most
you know,
12-year-olds would be, "It's cool, grandpa owns a restaurant, I get all the chocolate cake or whatever I want."
right? Right. Popovers, chocolate,
Yeah.
I ended up going to Cornell, but I didn't actually go to the hospitality school, which I think was a miss, but I always found myself there. We call them hoteliers. I
Yes.
should have been hotelie. But I was really just enamored with, the experience of day-to-day life and those moments that just felt so wonderful and magical, and really did find my way to exploring the fields of what we now call experience design, organizational design, cultural design, and over the course of my career, realized that the same process and skills that allow designers and inventors to create magical things in our lives, whether they're products or services, are the same kinds of things that leaders need in order to create new ideas that will help bring us to better futures. And we could talk more about that, but that's the thread. The thread is like, How do we have more agency to make choices that create value for others?
So, what does the portfolio of Lisa look like from the standpoint of obviously there's teaching, there's writing, there's research, but who's engaging with you other than students? So let me put it this way: who's paying you to get what done then on the non-academic side? If I
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. I think there are a lot of different people that are, that are paying me to get things done, but then there's the stuff that they don't yet know they need, that they need to be paying me to get stuff done. And at the core, I think it's like help us navigate this rapidly changing world that feels like it's happening at a velocity that we just haven't experienced before. And
thought they didn't put out an RFP for that. What if
no,
yeah,
no.
thinking about what you do is if the toilet's running, I know, okay, that's a plumber problem, right? So what are the things that they're looking at and going, something's off here, number one, and number two, oh, and Lisa's the gal that can fix that. Like, how do you connect those dots?
Yeah, I mean, and it will depend on the audiences. I am lucky enough to be affiliated with the D School, so, there's a lot of excitement around design thinking and what that can offer, so some people find me that way. Some people find me I've got a LinkedIn course called Leader as Futurist, so they find me that way. They're curious, what does that mean to be a futurist? And some folks find me because they know that I've written a lot about how to make decisions amid complexity and ambiguity. 10 years ago, I wrote a book with my co-author, Chris Hertel, about the practice of designing strategic conversations. And what that means is like, how do you bring people together that have to have conversations about the future and about the future that involves challenges that are both high stakes and highly important. So for many, that could be board meetings. I get a lot of calls that say, Lisa, we've got an important board meeting coming up. How do we design it to make sure that we're really looking at the future in a new way? Or conferences, Lisa, we're gathering hundreds of people together to have a conversation about the future. We don't want it to be talking heads on stage. How do you infuse energy and ask the right question and make sure that we're highlighting the right perspectives in the right way and we're making it experiential? So I get a lot of those phone calls. What they're looking for are new ideas. What they also get with me, though, are new capabilities. This idea that not only are we like thinking about the new possibilities, but we're also improving our own ability to be more resilient and generative in the process.
If you're enjoying this episode of Leveraging Thought Leadership,
Please make sure to subscribe. If you'd like to help spread the word about our podcast, please leave a 5-star review at ratethispodcast.com/LTL and share it with your friends. We're available on Apple Podcasts and on all major listening apps, as well as at thoughtleadershipleverage.com/podcast. You said a lot that was interesting to me there, but one piece I want to push on or learn more about is, they're looking for an outcome, right? So if I hire you to design my conference, what I'm thinking I want is a better conference, right? A good experience, and that would be reflected by attendance, feedback score, like whatever. I didn't ask you to develop a capability,
Right.
so it's sort of an accidental outcome. No, I'm probably thrilled that I got that, but say more about that.
Well, it's not accidental to me because that's what I want, right?
Right, and it wasn't what I
I
signed
want
up.
right? I want transformation, but people don't say, "Lisa, can you get me some of that transformation?" They don't say that, right? They say, "I'm feeling this acute pain," or "I'm feeling like we are stuck," or that we need to rethink how we're going about things, but we've never been taught. Can you help us? Can you help us come up with a process? Can you help us get to when we leave here, we want new ideas. We want things that we could fund. We want things we could start.
Okay.
Great. All that's great. But we know that those great ideas that they want to start will fall flat if they don't also have a window into understanding, well, how do they keep them going, right? How do they continue to fuel
Sure.
that? And I'll say it even more succinct, Peter. This is one of my favorite chapters in the book, Moments of Impact. At the end of teaching the process of how to design strategic conversations, we have a chapter called Overcoming the Yeah Buts, as in, yeah, but that would never happen here.
Right.
Right? Like, yeah, like, great, Lisa, fun session, but that would never happen here. First of all, I often think, like, who's the they in this? Like, they will not let, like, aren't you the they? Right? So
Yeah.
that's a big, like, headline for me. Like, you are the they. I could sort of, that's what could be my
Yeah.
next. But the yeah buts come in three flavors. And I think all of your listeners can really identify with this. The first is that, yeah, but we got to focus on near term results, right? Yeah, like, yeah, that long term thinking is important, but we have quarterly plans, we have an annual plan, we have a strategic plan. We've got ARs, KPIs, right? All of our incentive systems are near term focused. The second yeah, but is, yeah, but I don't have the budget. I don't have the team. I don't have a
Right.
this. I don't have a that, right? And we would call that like internal politics. Somebody has it, right? You don't have it. Somebody has it.
How do we get it? Right.
Yeah. And the third yeah, but is like, I don't know how to do this. I've never been taught. And that's the thing that really drives me, going back to the capability gap, right? Like, and I believe that you can learn to take a longer term a length. Like, you can go from termism to having a future orientation. You can, with
But that's not, I would say, yeah, but, right? But that's not something most of us picked up along the way, right? If I was to study to be an accountant, an attorney, a this or that, that wasn't on the list of, oh, there's a critical thinking class or there's a tort law class or whatever, right? There isn't a class that says how to be a long-term thinker, right?
That's what I do every day, Peter. Okay, let me give you another thought experiment that I do with my students and leaders. I will often start a session, particularly if I know there's a lot of skeptics in the group, like, what's this future stuff? I'll say, how many people here have taken a class in history? Every hand, right? Taken a class, master's, PhD. I say, great. How many people here have taken a class in futures?
Great, zero. Right.
Right? Then I say, which one of those can you influence? Thud. Yes.
And where are you going to spend most of your time?
And so I really do come to it with great empathy. It's not our fault that we don't know how to think about the futures in a disciplined, both creative and critical thinking approach. We've never been taught. It's not a thing, but it is a thing, right? And so my job is to invite more people, make these practices more accessible so that people understand that they are teachable and learnable, just like learning how to tell a great story is teachable and learnable, just like learning how to build a PowerPoint is teachable and learnable. Or a spreadsheet. I wasn't born knowing how to like build a discounted cash flow. Maybe you were. I wasn't. But when I help leaders say, look, we can go for the known to the unknown. Here's one way to do it, right? Let's use a features implication wheel and just ask ourselves a series of questions of what if, what if, what if. Let's do a rapid fire scenario planning so we can bring the future to life in tangible ways that provoke better questions today. Let's go look at the 10,000-year clock that the Long Now Foundation is building
Yeah.
about the kind of stewardship that they're trying to foster. How might that influence that? All of a sudden, you're changing the dynamic. All you got to do is like open up that wedge. That's sort of like, oh, I used to see it in black and white. Now I see it in technicolor. Now I understand that the strategic plan that I've been operating around is actually a social invention. Somebody created that. It's actually not serving me well because the future doesn't care about your 3-year plan. Oh, okay. Now I can be more adaptive, but you have to get the right window
Okay.
to open that up.
So let me ask you the final sort of two questions here. As a thought leader, right? What is the easiest or most fun part of what you do, and what's the most difficult?
The easiest and fun part is I love what I do and I learn something every day. Right now,
It doesn't come across because you're low energy and
low energy. Yeah, yeah.
have the energy of an actuary that hates being an actuary. Yeah.
If only something interested me. Right now, Peter, I'm teaching a class called View from the Future at the D School. Every week, we bring in an industry pioneer on the edge of their field, exploring what's next. I get to have conversations with these incredible leaders that are architecting the future of food. Yesterday, we did the future of media. Next week, we're doing the future of architecture. That is so fun. And my job is to tee up the conversation and help connect dots for our students so that they're changing their own thinking. What a blast. What a blast. I love that. I see opportunity everywhere.
And the hard part?
The hard part is that it's really hard to communicate it quickly. People are busy. Our attention spans are shrinking. Probably most importantly, our amygdalas and our nervous systems are wired for threat and fear. And in order to try to invite them to have a generative and abundant conversation about the future, I have to work against both the biological system that we are endowed with and the context that we are in right now, which is serving up more fear than possibility.
Love it. Thank you so much for that. That was, there's a lot here. This has been a lot blast. So thanks for coming on and thanks for sharing your story with us. I appreciate it. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks for what you do.
To learn more about Thought Leadership Leverage, please visit our website at thoughtleadershipleverage.com. To reach me directly, feel free to email me at peter@thoughtleadershipleverage.com. And please subscribe to Leveraging Thought Leadership on iTunes or your favorite podcast app to get your weekly episode automatically.